and they trusted in what Joseph said was going to happen. They knew regardless of what Pharaoh did, that God was going to bless them to come out of that land. And so they must have figured that if God is going to send us a deliverer, he may very well use my child. So I'm not going to destroy my child, because I don't know what God has waiting as use for him. And so they did not destroy him, because they saw he was a proper child. And the Bible says, and they were not afraid of the king's commandment. They had more faith in what God was going to do than fear in what the Pharaoh was doing. At the present, the Pharaoh was killing off all of the baby boys. But they decided they were not going to trust in fear, but they were going to trust in faith. They were going to depend more on what God was about to do than what Pharaoh was already doing. And brothers and sisters, this is the way we've got to raise our own children. We've got to raise them as children of faith. We've got to instill within them the value that they can trust God when they can't trust nobody else. That they can turn to God when they can't turn nowhere else. We've got to get them to the point that they learn how to wait on God and stop being so impatient, wanting everything right now. But see, we are partly to blame for that type of attitude, because we give them too much too soon. We start off rewarding them for behavior that's not conducive of good children. We give them things over and above what they're able to accept. And so they grow up with the mentality that you owe me this, that, or the other. And when they grow into adulthood, they take that same type of entitlement attitude with them, because everything has just been handed to them when they were children. That they don't recognize that when you learn how to wait on God, that what God makes you wait for is worth the wait. And so therefore, we have to look at the example of Moses' parents. They decided that they were not going to do as the king commanded them to do with him, but they were going to save their son for the possibility of God using him to deliver his people. When you got faith without fear, do you not know that everything is going to be all right? Because God took that baby Moses in that ark of bulrushes. See, the Bible says when they could hide him no longer, they had to go ahead and do something else with him. When Moses got to the point that they could no longer keep him concealed, oh mama Moses decided to make him an ark and place him in the bulrushes along the river. Well, God's hand was over that ark, and when she sent him away from her, that's when God brought him to him, because he allowed Pharaoh's daughter, who was down there bathing, to see that ark, which she had her maidens fetch the ark for. When she lifted up the lid, she saw that pretty Hebrew baby, and when he started to cry, her heart just went out to him, and she couldn't possibly destroy such a beautiful child. God had fixed it so that her heart was knit to him the very moment that she saw him. And so it was such that when Moses' mama decided to send her son up the river, when she decided to let her son go, then God brought him back to her, because his sister Miriam was watching what was going on. And Miriam made the suggestion to Pharaoh's daughter that let me go get one of the Hebrew mothers to nurse him for you. And she really got Moses' own mama. See, when you let was able to be in Pharaoh's house on a consistent basis. See, that's having faith without fear. When you believe that God is who God says he is. When you understand that there ain't no failure with God. When you know what you know. When you know what you know. When you know what you know. Then you know that God can't do anything but fail. And you put more trust in him than the word of some man. It's the same thing that Jesus said when he said in Matthew chapter 10 and verse number 28 that you ought to not fear them which are only able to kill the body, but you need to fear him which is able to destroy both body and soul in hell. And so you put your trust and your faith in God, that God is going to make everything all right. When you put your trust and faith in God, you're going to be all right. Because when you trust in God, the devil is defeated. When you trust in God, demoniacs are delivered. When you trust in God, the dead are raised to life again. When you trust in God, the captives are set free. When you trust in God, those who are in ruin are redeemed. When you trust in God, sinners are saved. When you trust in God, salvation is available for your soul. When you trust in God, the heartbroken are healed. When you trust in God, your hope can be restored. When you trust in God, your mercy can be administered. When you trust in God, grace is given. When you trust in God, love is lifted up. And so you need to just trust in God. You need to put your hand in the hand of the man who knows how to steal your stormy water. You need to put your hand in the hand of the man who can calm the raging sea. It doesn't matter what kind of storm you got in your life. Jesus is a storm specialist. He knows how to get up from where he is and walk out into the midst of the storm. Your storm may have been going on for quite some time. Maybe you've been dealing with it for a long time, and to the point that you just got used to the storm. You think that the storm is never going to subside. But see, that's the value of knowing how to go to him in prayer and lay your burdens before his throne and get up knowing that my God shall deliver, because Jesus is a storm specialist. There ain't no thunder, no threat to him. There ain't no lightning that can crucify him. There ain't no raindrops that can drench him, because he's a storm specialist. It was when his disciples were with him out there on the ship that Jesus was down in the hinder part taking him a nap. He was tired. He had been preaching and teaching. He had been talking and walking, and he was just taking him a nap, trying to refresh his body and renew his mind. And when the storm came, it started to rock the boat. You ever felt like your boat was rocking? You ever been sailing on the waters of Christianity and got down into the midst of the lake, and the wind started to dip you on one side and started to dip you on the other side? You felt like you were getting seasick because of all that was happening around you. But that's when Jesus' disciples didn't try to handle it themselves. They knew they were in a situation that was too big for them, and so they went down to the hinder part of the ship and they woke Jesus up and said, "Don't you care that we are about to perish?" And that's when the Bible says that Jesus got up from his sleep. He walked up to the top deck, got up there and did what only God can do. Stood up on the hinder part of the ship and looked in the wind and the waves and told them, "Peace, be still." And the wind stopped blowing, rain stopped falling, thunder stopped rolling, and the lightning stopped flashing, because Jesus said, "Peace, be still." And somebody in here this morning who's going through a storm, and all you need to do is go down and